Full-bodied, crisp, oaky, a lingering finish with a hint of blackberry and a suggestion of vanilla. Today we're looking at the language of wine, how to describe it, what the vocabulary actually means, and why a glass of red somehow ends up tasting of leather and violets. There's a dictation too, which starts around the 10-minute mark, and I would strongly suggest having a glass of wine before you do it, just for research purposes. Before the dictation, I will teach you some vocabulary for talking about wines in English, so I suggest you watch the whole video. If you want to do the dictation, then you will need a pen and paper ready. If you find this useful, hit subscribe. There's a new episode every Thursday. Let's go. We're going to go through some vocabulary for describing wines today. So here we've got a full-bodied red, So one of the first things that we should know about wine is that you can describe it as full-bodied. Okay, so if the wine is full-bodied, then it feels heavy and rich in your mouth. Okay, a lot of wines, red wines, are full-bodied. Of course, we've got other simple words like dry, a dry wine, which is the opposite of sweet. So you have a sweet wine and a dry wine. Of course, we also got other words you could use like crisp, a crisp wine. If it's refreshing and it's kind of sharp with a fresh taste, you can call it a crisp wine, okay? Fruity is another one. That's quite obvious. If it has a sort of a taste of fruit, you can call it a fruity wine. If it's like mature fruits. And also, when the wines are, what's the word? Not fermented, is it fermented in the big wooden barrels, we call them, which is like a big wooden, round sort of oval wooden container, a barrel. We sometimes they take the taste of that wood. So sometimes we describe a wine as oaky. An oak tree being a tree. Hey guys, this is advanced botany here. An oak tree is a tree. Anyway, the oak is yeah, it has a kind of leaves that look like that, and I don't know what it is in Latin. Quercus vulgaris, probably. I've just made it up. Yeah, they might also say it has a sort of vanilla taste. Or, oh, it is Quercus. Well. I'm going to read it for you. This full-bodied red opens with rich aromas of blackberries and a hint of violets. On the palate, there's a deep smokiness, layered with subtle vanilla, giving it a complex, lingering finish. So some interesting expressions and words there. Let's quickly have a look. So full-bodied we talked about. It opens with, so this is quite technical. You're going to sound a little bit over the top if you start speaking like this with your friends in a restaurant. But technically, the initial taste you get, they say that it opens with the rich aromas of blackberries and a little tiny suggestion of violets, which are these flowers here, you see. Okay, a hint of violets on the palate. So that's how we actually pronounce that part of your body. Okay, it's called your palate, not palate, not palate. There's a deep smokiness layered with a silent B, subtle, with subtle vanilla, giving it a complex, lingering finish. Do you have to let it linger? Yeah, that was a song by the was going to say the blackberries, the cranberries, yeah. Okay, by the cranberries. To linger is when something stays, it remains for a little while afterwards. Okay, so quite interesting vocabulary, isn't it, to describe wine? Okay, let's have a look at the next one. Here we've got a crisp white, a crisp white. As you can see here, looks nice and refreshing, doesn't it? A crisp, dry white with delicate notes of elderflower and peaches. Here's your elderflower. Its light body is balanced by a touch of rosemary, creating a fresh, elegant profile that's perfect for summer evenings. So this is the kind of thing you would read on the back of a bottle. Okay, so you have to cut through the bullshit and generally get an idea of what you're looking for. So if my mum was buying this, then she'd be looking for dry, white, maybe elegant, fresh. I imagine, mum, these would be the most important ones that push through, wouldn't they? Wouldn't they? Rather than peaches, elderflower, rosemary, which is leaning towards the sort of more expert way of speaking about wines. Okay. Are you having a nice crisp white this evening, Mum, with your dinner? Later. Yeah, not now, obviously. No, I use the present continuous for future plan, not the present continuous for present drinking. But yeah, okay, let's go on to the next one. A medium-bodied wine. This medium-bodied wine bursts with ripe cherries. Isn't that lovely? It's very poetic. It bursts with ripe cherries. Ripe being the word that we use for a fruit when it is mature. Okay, but we tend to use ripe when we're talking about fruit and vegetables. Mature, we might use for a person or a cheese, or indeed a wine. You can talk about wine being mature, cheese being mature, a mature cheddar, a mature Stilton, for example. But when we're talking about fruit and vegetables, we tend to say ripe. So a yellow banana is ripe. And a whisper of cinnamon. That's a little bit over the top, isn't it? A whisper of cinnamon. Soft tannins, I think that's the same in most languages, very similar. Soft tannins lead to a warm, toasty finish with just a suggestion of leather. How about that? A suggestion of leather. Okay, let's go to the next one. A vibrant aromatic wine. Now, I don't know who has put ice in there, but they should probably be shot. Anyway, vibrant aromatic wine. A vibrant aromatic white, brimming with peach and vanilla. So you've got some vanilla pods there, supported by a subtle smokiness. The texture is smooth yet refreshing, with an aftertaste that lingers like a memory. Yeah, it's real poetry. Okay, now some of them go a little bit too far. This one's a bit of a joke, really, but I put it together anyway. Nostalgia in a glass. This wine is pure nostalgia in a glass. It's like Christmas Eve at your grandmother's house. You've heard them talk about wines like this, haven't you? With the smell of pine and cinnamon in the air, a log fire crackling, and someone just about to hand you a warm mince pie. If comfort had a flavour, this would be it. What do you think of that description? So, guys, you're going to have to go and get a pen and paper now, because we're going to start the dictation. So I'm going to read this dictation twice, and I'll give you enough time, hopefully, in between reading to write it down or be pausing. It's not too difficult, but the language is quite advanced, and maybe the spelling of some words you might have to think about. So I'm going to go a little bit fast. I'm going to give you more words to write in one go. So you're going to have to try to remember and then link it together with your knowledge of grammar, okay? So let's get started. For true wine connoisseurs, now I'll spell the word connoisseur. It's a French word, I know, but we use it in English. But I'm going to spell it quickly, so listen carefully. Connoisseurs. 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 Comma. Describing a fine bottle is an art form. Describing a fine bottle is an art form. Full stop. Rather than simply stating whether a wine is white or... Sorry, I'll say that again. Rather than simply stating whether a wine is red or white, rather than simply stating whether a wine is red or white, comma, they speak of its body, aroma, and character. They speak of its body, aroma, and character. Of course, you need a comma between body and aroma. Full stop. They might note how the flavors evolve on the palate. They might note how the flavors evolve on the palate. Comma. Or how the aftertaste lingers. Like an unfinished story. Or how the aftertaste lingers like an unfinished story. Full stop. New paragraph. The language transforms tasting into a performance. The language transforms tasting into a performance. Dash. Part memory, part imagination. Part memory, comma, part imagination. Full stop. To an outsider, comma, these descriptions can seem theatrical. To an outsider, comma, these descriptions can seem theatrical. Or even absurd. comma, or even absurd, comma. But for enthusiasts, comma, they capture But for enthusiasts, comma, they capture the intangible pleasure of the experience. The intangible pleasure of the experience. Full stop. Last paragraph. In the end, comma, wine is not just consumed. In the end, comma, wine is not just consumed. Dash. It is explored, interpreted, and savoured in every sense. It is explored, interpreted, and savoured in every sense. Full stop. End of dictation. Okay, so I'll give you a few seconds to relax. And then I'm going to read everything again at normal speed so that you can check what you've written and also fill in any words which you missed the first time. Okay, so let's do it. For true wine connoisseurs, describing a fine bottle is an art form. Rather than simply stating whether a wine is red or white, they speak of its body, aroma, and character. They might note how the flavors evolve on the palate, or how the aftertaste lingers like an unfinished story. This language transforms tasting into a performance, part memory, part imagination. To an outsider, these descriptions can seem theatrical or even absurd, but for enthusiasts, they capture the intangible pleasure of the experience. In the end, wine is not just consumed, it's explored, interpreted, and savoured in every sense. So that is the end of the dictation. How was it, guys? How was it? Okay, so I'm going to show you the text now, guys, so that you can check everything that you've written. Here we go. For true wine connoisseurs, that's CONNOISSEURS, comma, describing a fine wine, a fine bottle is an art form, full stop. Rather than simply stating whether a wine is red or white, comma, they speak of its body, comma, aroma, and character. Full stop. They might note how the flavors evolve on the palate, comma, or how the aftertaste lingers like an unfinished story. Full stop. New paragraph. This language transforms tasting into a performance, dash. Part memory, comma, part imagination, full stop. To an outsider, comma, these descriptions can seem theatrical or even absurd, comma. But for enthusiasts, comma, they capture the intangible pleasure of the experience, full stop. Last paragraph. In the end, comma, wine is not just consumed, dash, it's explored, comma, interpreted and savoured in every sense. There you go. That's it. That's your dictation. Guys, have a wonderful evening. Thank you for being here. Always a pleasure. Take care and enjoy your evenings. Arrivederci.